Taking this over.
Welcome to a very rare live edition of the Blog Boy Roundtable. But when it's really big news, you've got to go live. Obviously, there's some massive news we'll get to. But first, let's introduce the Blog Boys. I'm Seth Bornador. We've got Anthony Vito, Robert Steig, Nathan Bond, all of the Bay Area Examiner. We've got Nick Simon of DraftKings Network. There's some really big news we're going to get to, but we did just have a national championship game, so we'll talk about that really briefly. Any surprises from that game? Michigan obviously kind of physically dominates the game, but kind of lets Washington hang around for a long time. Like if Washington could just get over that hump, they'd have a chance. It never happened. What do you guys think?
How about Donovan Edwards coming out of nowhere? 17.3 yards per carry, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just taking that game over to start when everyone thought that he got demoted.
I believe he hit his over for rushing yards on his first touch of the game. So that's pretty good.
It's not bad. Not bad at all.
Did anything surprise you? I mean, there were kind of certain ways we thought, I think we even talked about this game could play out. Was this a surprising way for it to play out?
Looking back at it, I expected Washington to just go guns blazing with those 3 wide receivers. And outside of, I know Adunze had a few good catches. McMillan caught the 1 touchdown pass. But outside of that, Michigan basically introduced, that was Washington's formal introduction to the Big Ten, because they baited Washington into an exact Big Ten game. Like that looked like anytime Michigan plays Penn State, where it's like, hey, yeah, you're within a touchdown. I guess you could tie the game, but you're not going to do that. You're just going to keep punting because there's nothing that you can do. And that was basically it. It was game over it was still close, but Michigan was never going to lose after a certain point. And kind of a disappointing end to Washington's season, but credit to Michigan for being this amazing defense, amazing ball control team from start to finish. Like just a total dominant season for them.
What about you, Nathan? Was this surprise you at all? I know we're big fans of Michael Penix.
Massive fans of Michael Penix. And what Michael Penix did was he pulled out the Randy Marsh, I didn't hear a bell, because that man was still slinging it late into the fourth quarter when if he doesn't have like a ruptured spleen or appendix or like 4 broken ribs, I'd be shocked. Like the dude took an absolute beating. He took an absolute beating all year. And the thing that kind of clicked for me, forgive me if I'm mistaken or I'm speaking out of turn here, did Washington's offensive line win like the best offensive line this season?
They won the Joe Moore. They'd only given up 11 sacks all year.
Okay, so you guys can just all raise your hand, answer me simultaneously. Had you guys ever heard of this award prior to this season?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, wasn't it Michigan who won the previous 2 years?
I think so.
Yeah.
Quite literally never heard of this award in my entire life. And this is what gave me pause. And they have the best offensive line and they're going to be great. I'm like, it was the Pac-12. Like, who are you really going against? You're going against Alex Rich's defense? Are we sure about that? Like,
to be fair, the Joe Moore Award is like brand new. They started the award in like 2015 or something.
Yeah, it's not crazy old.
Okay, so it's not like it's not like
it's not like the Heisman.
Okay.
The first time I heard of it was when 2019 LSU, their offensive line won that award, and it's like, okay, that makes sense because it's 2019 LSU.
Right. It's like, okay, well, so I wasn't losing my mind. Like, I had never heard of this award before this season, and it just kept cropping up during the conversation of this national championship game. Like, man, did they just give out a fake award to Washington to like try to help them out? Because it honest to God seemed like that. And I felt for it. Maybe it was probably more my love for Michael Penix Jr. than anything else than the offensive line award. But I mean, golly, Michigan did whatever they freaking wanted on defense, and it showed that Pac-12 offensive lines are not not that great.
Well, Michigan's
got dudes though.
Yeah, they've got a lot of
dudes.
pros. Bud Elliott, who friend of the show, Bud, whether he knows it or not, Bud Elliott has been saying, and he talks to a ton of coaches. He's been saying all year that Michigan has the guys that everyone thinks Georgia typically has. And he's been saying that all year. So that coupled with the defensive metrics they had this year made you think, okay, they're probably pretty good on defense. I think that's kind of what we talked about in previous weeks when we were picking Michigan, Penn State, and Michigan, Ohio State. This defense seems like it's for real. The offense also had great metrics, but that kind of fell off a little bit. Steve, what were your thoughts? Was it any kind of surprise in this game, or what were your thoughts on the championship?
No, the thing that surprised me, I mentioned it before the show, was how opposite swag this team was compared to the 2019 LSU team. That video of them singing "For He's a Jolly Good Fella," just it did the opposite of making me want to run through a wall. But yeah, I watched the first half and then slowly realized that this mantra that defense wins championships just kind of always is true, but also just makes these games so boring, especially with Michigan's offense, which was has the ability to be explosive, but isn't a fun offense to watch. I'm not dialing up, the big noon Saturday to watch Michigan offense. That's not fun. I'm watching Alex Golish week in and week out now. I need something a little bit more exciting in my life. So that sucked. But other than that, I mean, it pretty much just went exactly according to the script.
Outside of JJ McCarthy's final two drives, no quarterback should be 8 of 16 in a national championship game and be in the position to win. And that's insane that happened.
Yeah, we as a society need to come together. I know we can solve a lot of problems in this world, right? The whole world hunger, all the politics and everything like that. We need to set that all aside and it just come together and agree that those Clemson Alabama games where it was 56 to 40 or whatever, those were phenomenal. Those were great national championships. Give me blown defensive coverages all day. Those are the games that I love to watch. Give me the defensive back falling on the ground, stumbling his way because he's a former 2-star that's never had to cover a receiver in his life against I can't what's Williams from
Jameson Williams.
Give me that guy. I don't want to see another 7 offensive lineman offense in a national championship ever again.
I disagree.
You know what? That's what we call some big boy football. Here's the one thing that did shock me, just to kind of go in, because I just looked at these numbers. JG McCarthy was pretty much said there's going to be a game. He's going to have to put the team on his shoulders and win. And by golly, there was not. He did not have to, and he didn't have to do it. And he threw for less than 3,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 72% completion percentage. And that's an 88.2 passer rating, or QBR, which is 3rd in the nation. He didn't have to do anything. He just had to hand it off to his running backs, let the offensive line do their job, and that's kind of football my dad loves. He likes to say give the rock to the running backs, get them behind those elephants, and just pound the rock. That's what I grew up, literally what he loved.
That's a good little quarterback.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see what happens with McCarthy. I mean, he's 5th on Mel Kiper's big board for whatever that's worth in terms of quarterbacks. All right, I guess he has flashes, but it was weird. I think we even talked about it last week when we were previewing the game. It felt like Michigan just had stuff held back all year. They never even had to get into anything crazy, just because their defense was so good. They were never uncomfortable in a game. I don't think it was maybe a little bit during Alabama, but it was still within a score. They were never uncomfortable.
Are they holding stuff back for the Senior Bowl? I don't what are
I mean, they didn't need to break anything out.
Which is
it's you don't need. They went the first section of the play sheet. They didn't need the second part.
It's like, oh, break glass in case of emergency. There's cobwebs on it. It never happened.
They have a
Like,
spice cabinet filled with spices, and they put salt and pepper on their chicken the entire year.
Bro, this is the white person turkey on Thanksgiving. Like, it was so plain.
But if it was like perfectly cooked,
it worked. It did the job. Everybody left full.
Retain enough juices to be okay.
it was perfectly cooked.
Also, Jim Harbaugh coached in less than half of the games this season, right? So it's like that's another thing.
One of the craziest dominant seasons.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned this before. They did not face a single goal to go situation on defense until the Penn State game in like the first week of November. Like I know that they were running over tomato cans for the first 2 months, but that's ridiculous. That's oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. So I think a worthy champion based on pretty much everything. Defense, I think I saw somebody had them above Georgia's defense from a couple years ago. Like one of the best defenses since the turn of the century by some metrics. They snuffed a lot of people out. And then
I mean, we got all
Washington offense. They just
like, so how long does it take until like all of these wins get vacated?
You can't vacate the feeling.
We sure
doesn't matter.
Ask Louisville.
I guarantee those fans that were there don't give a flip.
Isn't that
vacate how it makes you feel?
Banners fly forever
until they take them down and they're hidden away. Ask the Fat Five.
I mentioned it's last year. Louisville hung up, like the NCAA allowed Louisville to hang up a number 1 coaches poll banner for the 2013 season. So banners fly forever. It doesn't necessarily have to say
that particular banner.
NCAA doesn't run the playoff, so
I would merely hang a banner. Like if they were going to vacate it and be like, it's done, you can't. Sorry, I would just get a banner and say 15-0 season, and then you won these 2 games.
I think like NCAA does run the playoffs, so they can just say playoff champion.
All right,
they're good. They'll be all right.
What, is Bill Hancock going to go up in the scout and go up in a boom lift and tear it down himself?
I think Peyton Silva's still up there, like protecting the Louisville one. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, that was the championship game, which is usually kind of the biggest deal. Saban said, "Nah, Nick Saban, after 17 years at Alabama, announces his retirement. It started to trickle out. I first saw somebody say Saban's retiring in our Discord, and I went and looked, and nothing had refreshed on Twitter. I was like, this guy's just being a jokester. And then, no, it really happened.
Bruce Feldman, like everybody.
I was like, oh, I need a refresh here. This says 54 minutes ago.
Okay.
Total shocker. I mean, I guess kind of not really. Now, we'll go to Nathan Bond first. Nathan Bond of the Bay Area Examiner, you did get to ask Saban a question.
I did.
Is that feeling like, is that stock appreciated greatly?
I mean, yeah. So it was like Dogecoin, I would say. So like real high and then cratered and then it's kind of trickled back up would be like the perfect example for it. And I'm gonna get this take off and let y'all have at it. College football without Nick Saban is not going to be fun. There needs to be a villain, much like the NFL, like Bill Belichick, Tom Brady era. I appreciate what Kirby Smart's been able to do because he was almost Fredo, and then he turned into General Kirby. He turned into Nick Saban. Like he could have been off. Like he was very close to being Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, and then Kirby turned it around, right? Like he is now a made man. What Nick Saban has done for college football is unmatched. At 2 different SEC schools, countless of guys in the NFL, countless titles. College football will not be the same without Nick Saban, and this is a very sad day for college football, regardless of the outside noise. when you lose, and he is an absolute legend. He is a Hall of Famer, like first ballot. Like put him in tomorrow, Hall of Famer. When you lose a guy who still coached DBs like he did 20 years ago, you can't help but think, man, college football got worse today.
Well,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, he's the best ever, in my opinion. Is, with coaching background and everything, like he's the best to ever do it in college football. Like, the consistency is unbelievable. The ability to kind of go every year is unbelievable. The ability to adapt and innovate. Like, I remember when everyone was laughing and laughing and having a good old time when the spread offense or no huddle stuff started getting really popular, and he asked, is this what we want college football to be? And everyone's like, oh, old man Saban, hilarious. No, it was just like, to me, it was like, in Batman, and then George Costanza told in Seinfeld, he was saying, like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Like, all right. And then he went out and just put together statistically the greatest offense of all time. The year after LSU was the greatest offense of all time, his Alabama team game the next year was even better. Like, he was able to adapt. He was able to, obviously, like, in a young man's game, he signed the greatest class of all time on paper last season, signed the number 2 class this year. Like, it's not gotten any easier, and he was just unbelievable. And like, I think he's so good that I think he's graduated from the villain role for a lot of people. Like, he's gone from 10 years ago, everyone hated it when Alabama won.
Right.
It was hilarious. Now everyone, like, it's just begrudging respect at this point, even if you don't like him. But yeah, it's definitely going to leave a hole. But I think was so good that you couldn't even hate him at this point.
And even when Alabama was like humming, right? Like they were cruising through and everybody hated them. For me, and this, I'm just talking about me personally, like even with like Belichick, the Patriots, like it's a similar path, right? Like they just kind of took over the NFL and college football almost at the exact same time. I think the Patriots had already won a couple of Super Bowls before, like Saban really took off at Bama. It got to a point where you're just watching art at this point. Like they were just so far ahead of their peers. They were phenomenal at their jobs, and you hated them because they were so much better than anything that you could put out. And it's like sometimes like it's like a musician who hears a song. It's like, damn, I wish that could have been that. I wish I would have even thought about putting that riff together. And it was like you said, I think he won a freaking title with Greg McElroy as quarterback. Like, what are we talking about? Like, bro, like the dude won with terrible quarterbacks, and it was like, oh, so this is the spread. All right, here's Jalen Hurts and Tua.
We'll do that.
Congratulations, you played yourself. I am going to just dominate.
Here's 5 first-round receivers in the same room.
Like, the guy was incredible, and he's going to be sorely missed. He changed the game forever, and he is the GOAT coach.
All right, can I ask a quick question of everybody? As I've just gotten my praise for Nick Saban out, best ever. I think he's the best coach ever. A ton of respect for him. Was super excited to be able to see him in person when Alabama traveled to USF this year. That was a really big deal as somebody that loves college football. So I asked this question with a lot of respect. Did he ruin college football?
He broke the sport, basically. Yeah. Like it's insane. It's insane how many fan bases he drove insane to the brink of it. Like the SEC was already this madhouse of warring factions, and nearly every program except for maybe Vanderbilt in some point got driven to the point of insanity throughout this 15-year run. It's crazy how dominant this dude was throughout his entire career in college football. And what really jumps out at me, because I grew up an LSU fan with a bunch of family from Baton Rouge in that area. It's crazy how he is the father of both the modern LSU program and the modern Alabama program. You have these two programs who at the time were underachieving, not in line, not having like all of their ducks in a row. And he turned them into the two of the best programs in the entire country. Like LSU, like I know LSU people still have their love-hating relationship, but he is undeniably still like everything that you see with that program traces back to him. And then he goes to one of their bitter rivals in the league and ups it even another level. That's insane. That's just crazy when you like really like sit down and you look at like what he's able to accomplish. And just as a side note, Nate, you brought up Bill Belichick a couple of times, and the insane thing is that within the next 24 to 48 hours, we may be getting Bill Belichick news, dude. That is
Bill Belichick being hired at Alabama.
Some people, yeah. I'm not,
could you imagine Bill Belichick
just
recruiting 18-year-olds right now?
Just I don't know, whatever. It's just
whatever. Like
just drop the rings.
No, you know.
As long as you do your job.
Yeah.
Saban, yeah, a lot of people, you know, for everyone who's younger than us or doesn't know too much, Saban was Belichick's DC on the Cleveland Browns in the early 90s before he took the Michigan State job. And that's, again, everyone kind of forgets. He did pretty well with Michigan State as well. Nick Saban, for me, that's kind of where I really started to get into college football, was always knowing him at LSU. And that's when I kind of knew that, I grew up a Florida State fan when my brother went there, and LSU was always right there, and it's just kind of what he did and had a whole renaissance. And I know everyone kind of looks back at, or doesn't really look back, but like what he did with the Dolphins in the NFL, and then coming back to Alabama, it was like the perfect opportunity for him to put his mark. I mean, it's him and Bear Bryant, and those are your two. But Saban finishes his Alabama career 201-29,
and he lost 6 his first year.
Alabama fan, yeah,
he lost 6 his first year.
Louisiana Monroe too. 201-29. Like, can you imagine? I just I don't understand.
We also got the
being an Alabama fan, just seeing this dominance and seeing how incredible a coach can be with a program in very different iterations, evolving multiple times. Coaches don't historically do. And then also, this year might have been his best coaching job of his career, getting this team to the playoff. And, obviously they lose to Michigan, who's the national champions, but kind of watching that, and we were watching the USF game and going, this is what, this is the Nick Saban is over party. And then he flipped the switch and turned it back around. And well, now I guess he is over party.
Interesting. Bear Bryant also kind of had to switch up his offense partway through his tenure and go from what he was running to kind of the wishbone. So that's an interesting parallel there. Steeg, what do you think the impact of Nick Saban is in college football?
So I live in the mindset of Nick Saban retiring, this is monumental for the sport. But typically things are going to evolve. I mean, they were probably saying the same thing about Bear Bryant. Things are going to evolve. We're going to have a new coach that becomes the eye candy, that becomes the dominant. I mean, it's bound to happen at some point. It's just, to me, it's widespread. It was peanut butter and jelly. It was Nick Saban in Alabama for me, being a little bit younger than you guys. I didn't know any different than Nick Saban just dominating. And so my first couple of years actually following college football, there was nothing else. It was just we got Alabama on the schedule, crap. And so when USF played Alabama this year, I mean, you guys heard me all week. It was just accept the L. It's done. Just get it over with. The pain machine is just going to march on, because they have been a pain machine for 17 years, essentially. You couldn't fathom beating Alabama as a smaller school. You couldn't fathom Alabama losing a big game. When Alabama lost national championships, it felt like a fluke more than that the other team was better at times. And that is the weirdest and most dominant way you could ever live in this sport, is that your losses were flukes. And there are just two people, actually one person and then one group of people who just deserve a giant L tonight. It is whoever is replacing Nick Saban, because we all know it's not going to work. They could get whomever they wanted on the whim, and we all know it's not going to work. And secondly, Auburn fans rolling Toomer's corner tonight is just it's the fattest L you could ever take.
No,
I'm sorry.
I disagree.
I'm sorry. If
disagree.
Nick Saban was your flipping daddy for years, and you celebrate his retirement by rolling Toomer's corner because you couldn't do that for more than 90% of the games.
When do you roll Toomer's corner?
When you win football games.
After big wins.
This is not a big win for Auburn.
It's a big win for Auburn. This is the biggest win Auburn's had since
if Auburn beat Alabama in that last game, absolutely roll Toomer's corner. You choked. You don't deserve happiness for you. Nick Saban deserves to be your coach for like a season and just go 0-12. That's where you're at with this Auburn. Do something better, Auburn. Like that's my take on it.
Strong disagree. So yeah, it's
they ran through our ass like shit through a tin horn. I mean, God. Yep.
That's what I was gonna say when you're talking Belichick and Saban. Interesting, like when you get them talking about something of football minutia, that's when like you mentioned art. Like Belichick going for 10 minutes on long snappers or why long snappers got specialized, like that kind of stuff. Saban talking about like option and stuff like that is always been awesome. I think, really though, like the most interesting part of this is what's next. We got fan with sources here in the chat. Dan Lanning and Eric Bieniemy have been contacted by Bama. I'd be fairly certain that Dan Lanning would get contacted. I don't think there's any way on earth Eric Bieniemy is getting contacted. I would be shocked.
So here's the thing with Eric Bieniemy. Disciplinarian was the thing that probably helped the Kansas City Chiefs over the last couple of years, and you're seeing the lack of that under Andy Reid this season. I think he was the disciplinarian to Andy Reid's like loosey-goosey, kind of the same guy as Nick Saban. Like Nick's, he's fun. He's the old fogey from West Virginia, but also I'm gonna lay your ass down. It's Dan Lanning or Kirby Smart. Those are your two options. And
Kirby.
And so, neither one should be dumb enough to be the first guy to follow Nick Saban.
I have a theory on that, if you will. Okay, so when has the guy to follow the guy ever been elite? Like it doesn't happen often. The guy to follow the guy, like Ron Zook. Nobody on this camera is Ron Zook. Like North all Dakota these State guys are elite names. Like it's not like when Urban Meyer left. Why did Urban Meyer leave Florida when he had it rolling? One, Nick Saban was one reason. Second reason, like
brain things, right? It was
everyone.
He wanted to spend time with his family.
He totally let it go to crap. Like there was erosion in the program.
Yeah,
of like discipline and other stuff. Like Saban is leaving you. Whoever comes in, I think still the best roster in college football, just in terms of like team talent composite. If you get everyone to stay, which I think if you get a big coach, guys will stay. I think it's about if the boosters will stay as locked in as they have been. I don't think you don't have to go from, I don't necessarily think the guy that comes in next is automatically going to fail because he's the next guy. Like this is probably the best situation. This is kind of like the Lincoln Riley situation at Oklahoma. Like Lincoln Riley was the guy after a guy, and he took over a really good situation. And guess what? They were able to win immediately. Now, there's no continuity there in terms of scheme because I do not think anybody that's on staff is getting this job. So,
you're telling me Charlie Strong doesn't have a chance to get this job?
He's a strong candidate.
Kevin Steele's like, wait, no, I unretire.
Head coaching experience. I'm retiring from DC because I'm going to be
Kevin Steele also retired, so that's not an option. You're not giving the job to Tommy Rees, like
not after that last play call.
And so here's my question: when did he know?
They said he was interviewing guys today.
And he's like, "Oh God, there's nobody. I'm done. I'm out."
I saw somebody say, "Look, Jalen Miller in the eye," and said, "I'm not doing this again." Like, but let's talk. But apparently, he was still recruiting everything. There you go.
That's why.
He finally looked at
I
next
do it
year's.
again.
Yeah, he finally looked at next year's schedule.
I think
Tim Yates, aka
let's talk
Beaker.
candidates. Yeah, let's talk candidates. Or Nick, what do you got? You have something to say? What do you think?
You asked, when did he know he was out? I think in his mind last year, if he had won it with Bryce, I think that's the perfect send off. I think in his mind, it's okay, Bryce is going to be the last guy that I'm going to really mold and send out of here with the national championship, and then I'm piecing out. And he didn't, and that didn't happen. So I think he comes back trying to give it another shot. Has the Milroe crap happen early in the season? It's okay, I have to MacGyver this thing and really adjust on the fly to get this across the finish line. Came up close, but obviously ran into that great Michigan team. Still took him to overtime, but ran into that great Michigan team. And I think once that fell apart and you kind of look around, he doesn't really have another upgrade over Milroe, whatever. It's you know what? I'm out. This is where I'm going to call it, which is probably a good choice.
Yeah, I thought before the playoff, I was like, it could work out perfectly if they win and Texas wins. His first national championship at Alabama was beating Texas in the Rose Bowl. If he could have beat Texas for another national championship, I was like, that would be a perfect way to tie it up in a bow and then retire. But after they lost, I was like, I think he's got to try. He's going to try to go out with one. But I think you might be right on, Nick, that was his thought last year because he really seemed to enjoy that team. From what I've heard from people, he really liked this team a lot too. But I think it's more because I think they probably overachieved a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes you know.
Yeah. I legitimately think that the seed got planted against Texas this year, and then it blossomed walking to the locker room during the rain delay against USF. He'll never say, he'll never give it, but man, that video of him walking back to the locker during the rain delay, he's dejected. And I don't think we've ever seen Nick Saban as dejected as he was, not in a way of oh, I don't think we're going to win this or anything like that. He's I'm done with this. Is the juice worth the squeeze at this point? And then he wins 17-3.
He was just thinking, man, the OC I hired for my last year told me this Buckner guy was the dude in the portal. That's what he was thinking as he walked.
And I wasted everyone's time.
Tommy Reese is never going to get another job.
He'll be all right. I'm sure.
I hope not.
Bro,
May I borrow 40 seconds of your time because this is an awesome list. Head coaching tree under Nick Saban. I'm going to try to do this really quick. I'm going to time myself. Okay. L.C. Cole, Dean Pease, Bobby Williams, Tom Amstutz, Mark D'Antonio, Brad Salem, Scott Linehan, Derek Dooley, Greg Colby, Josh McDaniels, Mike Haywood, Jimbo Fisher, Jason Garrett, Kurt Signetti, Pat Shermer, Will Muschamp, Mike Malarkey, Jim McElwain, Brian Polian, Dan Quinn, Adam Gase, Kirby Smart, Major Applewhite, Jeff Collins, Mario Cristobal, Lane Kiffin, Jeremy Pruitt, Billy Napier, Mike Loxley, Mel Tucker, Freddie Kitchens, Joe Judge, Butch Jones, Steve Sarkisian, Charles Huff, Dan Lanning, Ron Cooper, Brian Daboll, Brent Key, Lance Taylor. All head coaches in college in the NFL under Nick Saban in his career. Jeez, talent evaluation.
Do you knew how to hire assistants? Now, speaking of hiring coaches, who replaces Nick Saban? I think let's talk through the candidates here. Dan Lanning is the first name. He's the name that everyone's been saying for basically the whole year when people were like, Saban out, they'll go after Lanning.
Don't do it.
Stay in Oregon, brother.
Why?
Don't do it.
What do you think in terms of obviously Alabama, where they're at now? New SEC, some of the edges at Alabama are because Saban is so good, in his reputation. how difficult is that going to be to replicate? Because Dane Lane is going to go into the Big Ten and be the third best recruiter at worst, maybe second best immediately. So what's the impetus for him to leave? Do you think there is one?
No. You are in a prime position because none of the other Big Ten schools outside of Michigan, Ohio State, sometimes USC are very good on offense. Like, chill there. This is like sacrificing like your pawn to like get the king into check, right? Like, Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, do not move on this job yet. Wait until the guy after Nick Saban flames out, and we all know it's going to happen.
Kirby Smart's not. I don't know that for sure. Kirby Smart's not. Georgia's a better job than Alabama
right now. Yeah.
You'd be hustling.
Whoa.
It is.
Let's pump the brakes.
No, it is.
Oh, wow.
Georgia is so if you're Kirby Smart, you've already I think of Kirby Smart as Gen X Saban.
Is
right?
this like is this a Bama, Georgia are on the same plane, or like Georgia's ahead of
Georgia's better.
Right now,
It's a better job.
A better job right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's a separate conversation that we're gonna have because
The state of Georgia is like one of the most underrated talent producers, and it's growing as like Atlanta grows and suburbs grow there. Like it's a much better your access to talent at Georgia is much greater than Alabama, and there's
that's going to be an interesting conversation to have this offseason for sure.
We can have it.
We will. I assure you, we will. But outside, okay, so take Dan Lanning and Kirby off the table because Dan Lanning's not stupid enough to be the guy to follow Saban. Kirby off the board because it's a better job.
It is. I mean,
okay, sure, pal.
What way is Alabama better that doesn't have to do with Nick Saban?
It's
historically,
it's historic.
Okay, let's get Penn out here. That's a better job than two, right?
Oh, here we go.
Did you say
Hold
Pitt
on.
or Penn?
Penn.
Pitt or Penn?
Not Pitt.
Like you Penn? You Penn?
Yeah. What about Rutgers? They played in the first game.
There's also.
All right.
I can't wait for you guys to fight.
Later.
Oh, this is gonna be so
But
good.
yeah, I
Dad, please
agree.
fight.
I don't think it'll be either of those two guys. So like, who's next?
I'll tell you, there's one person dumb enough to take this job. And we all ready on the count of three. Everyone, 3, 2, 1. Lane Kiffin.
Oh, damn it.
Oh,
Damn it.
Gus. Oh man.
Oh God.
I think Lane. Lane would be an interesting candidate. Obviously, I think he wants it. I think that's why he held out from going to Auburn last year. He's also building his best team ever at Ole Miss. Is he a guy that wants to see it through, or is he a guy that is like peace out?
It's also the question, like, he just lost his running back, right? Like the running back went to the portal.
Yeah.
So now, okay, well, if I can't bring the entire band back together,
you do have a glass ceiling at Ole Miss. There's always going to be that. This is like what you're doing is hitting the top of where you possibly can be. I think Lane Kiffin wants nothing more than to sit in the Nick Saban seat with his feet up, put up the Joey Freshwater's title, and go, "It's me, baby. Let's go." I just think that's
But
what
also,
he wants to do.
How entertaining would it be if he got the job? Like, I think Lane Kiffin presents the opportunity of. It is it's a much higher job than what he had at Ole Miss, but it's really going to test, like, okay, how good of a coach are you actually, right? Because he was really good as an OC. He was good at FAU. Ole Miss has a ceiling, right? It's a 10-win season at Ole Miss. You'll luck into 11, maybe. How good are you really when the chips like are stacked against you? How good are you really? I'm not entirely sure he's that guy. I think he talks about being that guy. I don't think he's actually that guy.
And Joey Freshwater was invented in Tuscaloosa. So I think he's got a bit of a reputation there that he still would have to get past with some people. But I don't know. Nick, do you think he'd want to see it through at Ole Miss his last year? Because, I mean, there's also, like, if he's gunning if he's just like, I want a bigger job than Ole Miss, Florida's probably coming open next year.
Lane has won it out of Ole Miss for like a long time. Like, I mean, if you listen to Split Zone Duo, like Godfrey always says, like whenever he doesn't have to be in Oxford, he's down in Florida in the Keys, right? So to me, if the opportunity presented itself, he would absolutely take this job 100%. If not, you just wait about a year and there may be an opening in Gainesville, and he would definitely jump on that too. But yeah, he'll abandon Oxford in a heartbeat. He doesn't want to be there.
The multi-transfer rule's over. This superpower team that he's building at Ole Miss, he's just gonna pick it up and drop it off in Tuscaloosa, anyways.
I don't know how many of those guys would. There's a couple, but most of them wouldn't start it out. It's at all. Like that's the thing. Like
Jackson Dart would start at Alabama.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a couple. Walter Nolan would also probably go over, but like that's the thing. Like Lane is Lane is he's putting together a really good team this year, and probably his best team ever. The team probably going to make the playoff, maybe start in top 10. But like, go to Alabama and you've got all that stuff too. Like, that's my funnier Lane spot, and then we'll get on to some other candidates. Alabama or Michigan when Harbaugh leaves.
Oh no!
Could you imagine
Michigan man Lane Kiffin?
Why?
No, he's not going north of the Mason-Dixon line anytime soon, for sure. Like, he's a Southern dude.
I would just feel so bad for Sharon Moore.
Yeah.
We're bringing Lane Kiffin. Have fun with that.
Bama candidates, right? Is Dabo an option?
No, they ain't putting up with Dabo's ass. Like, he comes in talking that portal.
So
Is he too Southern Baptist for Bama?
That's ridiculous.
Alabama ain't. That's all.
He's too non-portal. Yeah. The only portal he believes in is baptism. But but here's the thing. Like, so this just came out interesting. Like, just came out today from Ross Dellinger. Charlie Baker's the head of the NCAA.
That's not going to focus.
Expects the D1 Council to begin the process of activating the proposal he announced that permits school to pay NIL directly to athletes. So NIL will be coming in-house. So basically, I think what's coming down the pipe here is that you're going to have GMs and you're going to have front office. So if it's like we're bringing Dabo, but he's going to have a GM that runs all the, like, Dabo probably would not agree to that, but that would solve some of his issues, I'd imagine. Yeah. I think it's a couple years late for Dabo because you can't get a guarantee he's going to use a portal. So, which is a huge part.
Isn't he dabbling in the portal now?
No portal commits.
Still?
They've dabbled, but no portal commits. So
they won 4 straight at the end. He just went away from it.
Hold on, give me 1 second.
They're putting offers out. They just haven't. I think they just haven't any commits yet in the portal.
1 hour ago, students gathered in front of Bryant Denny and chanted "Anyone but Dabo." So
they'll
brew it themselves out of it too.
The big money guys like Dabo. He's from Alabama. He played for Gene Stallings, right? Like he's
a Birmingham boy. Like
people that give money would love Dabo. I'm fairly certain. Nobody cares what the students say.
But in Alabama, he is actually just called by William Christopher. Like he's not Dabo at Alabama anymore.
That's true. That's I look forward to.
So you had Lanning as I think he's the betting favorite on these sites where you can bet. The top 3 were Lanning, Sweeney, and Kiffin. Kalen DeBoer is another name that's been up there.
Oh, God,
I think to me that's the most like all these other names they're going to reverberate. You know, with if one of these big sitting head coaches leaves, there's a big job open. Washington, I think, is probably the one with the least reverberation. They may elevate like
just promote the OC,
Ryan
right?
Grubb and move on. Like, guys won everywhere. Could he handle the Bama job? You think?
That's another situation where it's just like stay in the Pacific Northwest, brother. You're going to the Big Ten. It's going to be like you're going to walk in as a top 4, top 5 program in that conference. Like, just stay put.
All right.
If you're not from the area, does the allure of Bama really bring you in? I'm with you there. It's like stay where you've been successful. And Ryan Grubb, a lot of those coaches have been with him the whole time too. If he were to go and Ryan Grubb says, I'm going to stick around because I'll get the Washington job now, does that tandem not being there anymore change things and their direction? That one feels a little off the cuff, but I mean, he's won everywhere. So that's great to have his name in there.
So other name that I've seen some people throw around that I thought was interesting, especially like so far every candidate's been like, you've got a pretty good, besides Lane, you know, you're in a good spot. You're going to a big conference. Mike Norvell's name's been thrown around a little bit. Ooh. He doesn't recruit the high school level at quite the way Alabama could, but being in Alabama probably would help that. You think, what are your thoughts on Mike Norvell? And, so here's I think I said earlier, I've got a dominoes. So Mike Norvell to Alabama, Deion Sanders to Florida State.
Deion Sanders is a product of an HBCU now, so like I don't know if they really appreciate him coming back to Florida State.
I think he'd be all right with it.
Would he renounce that? I don't know how that works.
I don't know. He burned that bridge. It seemed like.
Yeah, there's a.
I mean,
where do they? I mean, where was? It's kind of super hypothetical, but where do they go? Like,
they might just bring up Alex Atkins, right?
They could, but now you're like, good luck, first gig. It could be, and he's I mean, head coaching job soon, but
there's a pretty good ginger down in Tampa that.
Yeah. No, that's where the dominoes start to fall. We've seen a few different people ask, does this affect Golish? It's like, not for Alabama. But
not
once
right.
you get to the second, third
right
domino,
now.
Could be.
Like Ole Miss could be.
Jesse Minter?
Ooh.
I don't. This does not seem like
Florida State. Yeah.
This does not. Are you talking about Florida State or?
I'm talking about Alabama.
This does not seem like a first head coach job. Like,
I don't know. I mean, he's got like just looking at the resume, like he's from Arkansas, so he's got the South, right? Like, I will beat you with the North or whatever the office thing is. He coached at Vanderbilt, was very good, has the Harbaugh connect. I don't know. That seems like a pretty good spot, but he could also be an option at Michigan if
and
Harbaugh ends up in the NFL.
There's thought that McDonald, who's Harbaugh's DC, is going to get a head coaching job, and then Minter just slides in to Baltimore because that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah, they flip-flopped a little bit, right?
Any names we haven't mentioned that I'd say one name I think is kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't think Alabama fans would go for it, but a guy that's in need of a reset, I think, Ryan Day.
No.
It'd be ugly.
Yeah.
He does need that reset hard. I saw someone mention Brian Kelly.
They don't.
I know they don't want that, but
if LSU didn't get to him, I would say that would be a candidate that they would consider heavily strongly. But he's at LSU now, and they have like this ridiculous recruiting class coming up next year.
Yeah. So. I mean, those guys will. I don't think it'd be tough to take him to Bama.
I've
got one off the board.
I was going to have one. Go ahead. Let's go ahead.
So off the board, and by so off the board, I mean the man has never coached in college. However, he's got the riz. He's got the talent.
Pat Shermer?
He's got Pat Shermer. How'd you know?
Riz King, Pat Shermer.
He's got it all. Looking for a reset. Terrible back half of the NFL season.
Mike Vrabel.
Close. He is a Mike McDaniel.
Ooh.
Just stealing from the Dolphins.
Just go back. It worked once. Do it again.
I did have that thought that they might go NFL to replace Nick.
All right,
there's a joke
the thing,
there, but I won't.
Here's the thing, and I am taking this way too seriously, like it's going to happen. But he would be such a good college coach.
Yeah, but
if you guys watch the in season Hard Knocks, that's the stuff that gets college kids riled up. I don't think it works well with NFL guys, but for college players, it would work.
I think until they shore up the calendar, some of their stuff, that move is going to be super rare. Guys going from NFL to college. Another name that was brought up, but kind of similar thing, D'Amico Ryans.
He's got something good going on. He's got a guy.
The Dolphins were almost a Tuesday. They were
they lost 5 of the last 6 or something.
They had guys hurt.
Insane. Sure, whatever.
D'Amico Ryan played at Alabama.
D'Amico Ryan.
Mike McDaniel. What's the?
He's got the grid.
There is a joke to make about Mike McDaniel, but it's.
I don't really see many guys going NFL to college.
Would Mike McDaniel be the first black coach at Alabama?
Yeah, he would be.
Yes, yeah, he would.
That was the joke. That was the joke.
Okay. So
in terms of
I mean, talk about easing in.
In terms of a small leap, yeah.
I have an
toe in. I think someone.
I mean, God,
a lot of the fans.
God bless. I mean, just really dipping your toe into the pool of the other half of the world. I mean, congrats on getting to 1998. I don't know. It would help.
I have one that I'm surprised the name hasn't popped up. I kind of get it, but I figured there at least be in there somewhere. Steve Sarkisian.
No.
Yeah, he's another. I think he's in that Lanning, tier of why.
Because you're technically you were there and you helped orchestrate a really solid offense there in Alabama. Texas is going to the SEC and there is going to be a learning curve. You could realistically pivot over to Bama, where you likely will be with open arms, and Texas might have a hard time making the transition. Whereas if you go to Alabama, you're going to have the leg up theoretically if you think they're from a program standpoint they're better.
So here's why Sark would never go back to Bama. There are other things to do in Austin, Texas that there isn't in Tuscaloosa.
Bro, they don't have time to do anything.
Well, here's the thing. The only thing that Sark could do in Tuscaloosa is drink, and that can permeate throughout the rest of his job. So maybe if there's other things to do in Austin other than just sitting in your office in Alabama.
I think in terms of if he feels any pressure in his job, it could be interesting to reset the clock, so to speak. But I don't know, man. Texas is I think they're on par with Alabama in terms of a job. So
and from a financial standpoint too, and just being Texas as big as it is, and you beat them, you beat Alabama. You don't need to go there. But I thought that was an interesting kind of name I haven't seen floated around there in a world where James Franklin's name's floated around there. And I thought that was
that's a work of Jim. That's a work of Jimmy Sexton right there. Get his boy Franklin involved. Another name I saw that it could be an agent thing as well. Marcus Freeman. No, Marcus Freeman. Interesting. It would be kind of an interesting young guy. Is leading one of the premier programs in college football already, but would make recruiting a little bit easier.
I need to see more from Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. He's been pretty good. He's had the first 2 years for him has been pretty solid. But I think stepping up into a massive job like that, I think Alabama fans would need to see more. I think him, kind of like Sark, would be a good, like, let's check back in 3 years from now for the guy, like after we get rid of whoever we're about to hire. Like, let's go check in with those guys again and see.
No, I think whoever Florida's AD is just taking notes on all these guys that don't get picked and is going to go after. Like Freeman, I think will be a candidate for Florida next year if they have the job. Lane would be a candidate for all the quite a few of these guys, I think. So we'll see. Anybody else you've seen? Because we're going long here. Anybody else you've seen that's interesting, or any other name you think that would be interesting for the job? It's obviously, I think, despite the guy after the guy, I think it's going to be pretty coveted because these guys are pretty confident in themselves. Most of these coaches that make it to this level, you're getting the keys to, an absolute behemoth. So, any other names you guys have seen or would be interesting to you besides Kerwin Bell?
You took the name out of my mouth. I don't know. I mean,
Josh Heupel?
I don't know if Alabama is will like the Mickey Mouse offense.
They like. I don't think Rich Rod would say no this time. He's in state, right?
Jacksonville, Alabama.
There you go. All right. Well, that was a extended edition of the Blog Ball Roundtable. We talked the College Football Playoff Championship. We talked some Nick Saban. I'm sure whenever that hire gets made, we'll be back talking the ramifications of that hire. And Ted Lasso in right before the buzzer. He's available from what I've heard. Oh wait, maybe I shouldn't say that. So
spoilers.
I mean, the show's over. That's all I'm saying. The show's over. So we'll stop there. We'll be back in this offseason. We'll need more college football news breaks, and we'll have to talk. Tune in later this year where we talk which is a better job, Georgia or Alabama.
Oh, can't wait! Can't wait.
All right, thank you for watching. We'll be back with more college football news in the future.
Game the YouTube algorithm. Let's go.
Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Help us game the YouTube algorithm.